So, hello and welcome everyone to this Aerospace and Aviation webinar on new business models. We have over 125 people signed up from more than 20 different countries. They come from aerospace and aviation companies. Some of them are IT consultants. Some other industries are manufacturing and retail, for example. We're delighted to have with us here today Jacques Beauchesne, who is the new academic director for the program, and along with him, a former HEC Executive MBA participant who did the executive certificate in aerospace and aviation in 2012, Jean-Philippe Scherer, and his current position, he works as a strategic program manager for Airbus Defence and Space. So to get us started, we'll be spending around 15 minutes on the introduction and context to the aerospace aviation program. This will be followed by approximately 25 minutes discussing drivers of new business models and finishing up with around 15-20 minutes of Q&A session and wrap up here. So please remember, you as participants in the webinar, to feel free to ask questions during the session in your question field, which is located down to the right on your panel, and we will either try to reply during the webinar in question, or we will get to those questions during the Q&A session at the end of it. Thank you from me, and now I'm very happy to hand over to Jacques Beauchesne to begin the introduction and context segment.
Thanks, Angus. Thanks for that. Hi, everybody. What we will do in the first part, Jean-Philippe and I, first we will talk a bit more about ourselves. So, and you have a picture of me, and you see me in live. So the picture is a bit old, so I might have 2-3 years more now. Okay, I like Anders said, I'm the new academic director. So I did last year. I did a complete 1 year with the last intake with Georges Rochas, who was the initiator of the program 10 years ago. By the way, I was an alumnus of that program. So in 2008, I did it as part of my executive MBA, just like Jean-Philippe. Back then, it was called an advanced certificate. Now it's called executive certificate. What I've done, what I'm doing now is I've been a consultant for many years. I think I'm a bit of an alien in this type of program, because when George created the program, he was looking for people that were coming mainly from the industry. Of course, I started as an IT consultant for many years, first in the industry with Lafarge and then with Deloitte. And now I'm an independent consultant. But when I came to France in 2002, I did consulting exclusively in aerospace and defense and aviation, and that's why I decided to do this certificate 10 years ago. And it helped me become a founding member of 2 innovative startups in aviation and work on research project trying to improve the link between online data on the aircraft, which is quite important today, and the operations and MRO in reality. And I also was the head of a transformation program for a major Russian civil and defense company. So now I will give some time to Jean-Philippe to talk a bit more about himself.
Sorry. I'm, as Anders mentioned, a strategic program manager in Airbus, working on new programs, so future programs, and I'm dedicated to space and aerospace communications. I was fighter pilot in the French Air Force for 20 years. Was very, very good memory in operations in Africa and Middle East. And then I finished working on the Rafale, on the experimenting new program for the Rafale. Today I'm still a reserve officer working for the MOD and in the Joint Space Command in Paris. So I'm delighted to have some defense question, issue, topics in this certificate, and also space, because I'm space engineer. That would be very exciting to work with you, Jack, on this certificate.
Yeah, Jean-Philippe will talk. You will have a topic about integration between space, military, and aviation. The decision was made to have Jean-Philippe join the program to help me diversify the program, like he said, to include more of space and more of a military or defense aspect into the program, keeping, of course, the aviation part, but enlarging it to the other areas, to the aerospace part of the certificate. Okay, thanks, Jean-Philippe. Just allow me some time to talk about the program. So the executive certificate, like we said, is you can actually do it part of the executive MBA at HEC. So if you do an executive MBA at HEC, you have to have a major, what we call a major, and one of these major is the Aerospace and Aviation executive certificate, or you could do it on a standalone way, which we always have candidates do that. So to whom is the program aimed at? Of course, mainly it's an executive and senior manager with civil and military with significant experience in aerospace and or aviation sector. But I would say that because I'm an exception to that, and I think it's really important that the sector opens to other aspects of the industry, we will welcome different type of people. We have people coming from financing of aircrafts, insurance of aircraft, and IT also, because now, as we will see through some of the topics, IT is becoming more and more important. It's been designed to develop your analytical and decision-making skills and to in-depth your understanding of the challenge and opportunity in the sector.
We have a quick question. A participant is asking about the recording of the webinar or the presentation. And yes, we will be recording it, so we'll send you around the link to that afterwards so everyone can have access to it. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thanks.
Please, Jack.
That's okay, thanks. Okay, so just to do a quick overlook of the program. So the first module takes place in Montreal, Canada. So the question, why Montreal, Canada? Well, it's not because I was born there. That has nothing to do. The fact is that Montreal is the base of many institutions in the Air and Space Organization, like ICAO, IATA. You have also McGill Air and Space Law Institute, which is worldwide recognized in aviation and space. And what we will be doing there is we'll be talking a lot about innovation and collaboration. We have people that, and I'll talk about it later, we'll have people coming from US, so it's the occasion also to see people from US, Canada being an important platform in aviation. So the debate is it the second, the third, or the fourth? Is it in front of Brazil or behind? I think now with Airbus coming along with the Bombardier, it's a game changer. We have people coming from MIT, from McGill Air and Space, like I said, and North American specialists. So we want to give it a flavor of North America. And also what we do there is this industry exists because you have operators like airlines. So we try to understand their business model, and this will be done by Peter Belobaba, who's a recognized MIT teacher. Okay. The second module takes place in Toulouse and Paris. We're looking, to be honest, to maybe have it fully done in Toulouse. This is a question we're going through right now, but the topics will be the ones that you see there. So we build on what we did in Montreal, so we go more in depth. We have people coming from analytics of Safran. We have a lot of presenters from Airbus, and we give it more of a European flavor here. Okay, and it culminates with the presentation of team research projects presentation. So each participant has to be part of a team, and this team research project will be presented on the last day in Europe, so in Paris, and it's to address a specific strategic issue throughout the program, part of a team. And so the way this is done, the project can be a project that one of the participants brings from his company, and this is quite interesting because often what happens is that the team member can actually go and present that project to the corporation who's decided on a topic. What can be the individuals that get together in a team and say, we want to work on a specific topic because we want to create a startup, for example, and this has happened in the past. So on the first day in Montreal, we decide on the team and the topics that are selected, and Jean-Philippe and I will accompany you to give you hints on what we're looking for, and we'll be part of the jury at the end with a teacher from HSA. So this is a great experience, and it's a great takeaway from the program. It's very practical. Okay, so now let's get to the topic of the presentation itself. So when we sent the invitation, we sent 5 drivers of new business model that we wanted to talk about. The first one, I will cover that one. It's a grouping of many things. I could have called it just a digital transformation, because this happens because of big data and it helps automate probably industrial processes. But I've called it big data digitization and industry 4.1. The second one is blockchain, which could be a part of the first topic, but I wanted to address this one in particular because we will be treating it separately in Montreal in what we believe an interesting way. The third one, Jean-Philippe, of course, will address that one. It's the integration of between aviation, space, and defense. And the fourth one is the carbon reduction regulations. There are several regulations now, and one that will come in force in the beginning of 2020, 2021 is one that ICAO came up with after the Paris Agreement. We'll talk about that and what opportunity this offers to the participants. And the last one, we will address how can we innovate in the industry, and that will be covered by myself as well. Okay, so the first transformation enabler is the digital transformation part. Okay, so let's call it big data digitization. And just so you understand, we will, of course, we could spend a lot of time in explaining what it is, but basically what we need to understand is the industry is actually going through a major transformation, and this is actually in a lot of parts caused by the fact that digital transformation enables digitalization, data abundance is helping, so big data, there's a lot of data and connectivity of aircraft. So I don't have the number on top of my head, but I know that now the new aircrafts will transmit a lot of data, and this makes possible for disruption in the industry. For example, we'll accelerate the move from pure product sales to service and create added value. It would actually be possible through connectivity. Also, platforms will enable more of an open R&D, because what has happened in the past is R&D was really within one organization. Now the technology helps to collaborate around the project and R&D, which makes it interesting for tier 2 and tier 3 manufacturer, because they can contribute to tier 1 projects. Also, collaboration is the big word right now, and it's one topic we'll talk about in MRO as well, because we're moving more from head-to-head competition to collaborative approach. And yeah, probably that's it. More collaboration is in the air, and that's for sure through digital transformation. So the strategy. Okay, we could talk about a lot of approach. What I wanted to focus on is the possibility the enabler will create more collaborative business model that will allow multiple players and participants to connect, to interact, create, and exchange value. The second outcome of this is that the abundance of data, the connectivity of aircraft will produce high volume of data and generate connected system. And this will able to actually be more proactive in the analysis of the behavior of aircrafts, for example. The third one is augmented and virtual reality. This is interesting because there are many studies that say that there will be a lack of engineers in aviation in the near future because of the increased demand and the fact that there is less and less people going into engineering and aviation. It's actually real. It's the reality in areas like Asia and America, maybe a bit less in Europe, but it's still an issue. Okay.
And Jacques, here, do you have any examples from the industry that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Yeah, for example, if you look at digital platforms, I guess if some of you are familiar with Airbus, there's the Skywise approach. Is that Airbus decided to partner with Palantir, who's a big data analytic leader, to introduce Skywise. It's a data analytics solution for their customers. It's a secure cloud platform facilitating data analysis, and they offer service like health management, fleet schedule management, ground operation, and many other possibility. More or less the equivalent on Boeing side is called Boeing Analytics, and we also have Predix, which is the solution provided by GE Aviation, and GE has been through their engine analytics, they've been pioneers in the domain of digital platform and data analytics. If you look at other subject, you have also Honeywell, who's actually have a Go Direct solution that they actually commercialize. They have customer already in the industry. For example, they have Japan Airlines that use their tool for fuel efficiency. So mainly right now, their solution is more adopted by airlines, and it's around the fuel efficiency. IBM Watson uses, it's actually sitting on Maximo, which is a maintenance software, and they're doing a lot of operation and MRO analytics for Korean Airlines, for example, and American Airlines. And Gavis is a small company. That's an interesting story because Gavis was purchased, I'm not sure when, but it was purchased by Thales. And they were mainly into the telecommunication world. And now Thales believes that they can actually offer a lot into the predictive maintenance for the aviation. So we'll follow that story as well. But that's a good example of aviation, an aerospace company looking elsewhere to get moving on that topic.
Okay, thank you.
And also an augmented reality. You probably heard of Microsoft HoloLens and the likes. So how will we approach this in the certificate? Okay, we have a specialist from Capgemini USA. He's actually involved a lot with Boeing, so we can actually understand better what Boeing is doing around a collaborative approach. And that Michael is a very knowledgeable person coming from military, by the way, from the American military. So I hope we won't get into a conflict. They're in NATO.
No, it's an ally.
Yes, exactly.
We are friends.
Yeah, and what we will do for Industry 4.0, we will actually rely on academics from Concordia and researchers from Concordia they will embed us on site. We will go and visit a manufacturing site in Montreal, and the course will take place there, and we will address of course, because we're HSC, what we try to look at from this angle is how should you address Industry 4.0? What makes sense for you from a business perspective, more than the technology part. We have somebody from ICAO who will come and talk about big data, and I will talk about it in more detail in the following slides. We will talk about blockchain. We have a professor from Concordia and somebody from Air Canada. We will talk about this. We will experience the usage of virtual reality for training purposes, for assembly purposes, manufacturing purposes in real life in the program. And of course, in your project, this is something you might be interested in addressing. Okay. The second topic I wanted to talk about is blockchain. Okay, if I'm not an expert on blockchain, maybe some of you out there are more knowledgeable than me, so bear with me, just to what needs to be understood. And we will have a teacher that is a gold medal winner in Canada for his research on his thesis project on blockchain. So any questions you might have on blockchain will be addressed by that person. But basically, what is blockchain? It's a highly secure, decentralized ledger, digital ledger between multiple parties that help them generate a transaction, and they are fully secure. So the value is that you actually sequentially record transaction. You can actually do audit trail of assets. You have enhancing trust in business relation and avoiding losing transaction, authentic information. Okay. if we take this and we try to understand how this could be applied to aviation, of course, there is many possibilities. One of which is obviously in maintenance, because you could keep track of detail and historical data through the life cycle of a product. A product being a component, or it could be a full aircraft, an engine, or whatever. What is interesting is this. And this is one subject we will address in Montreal. Collaboration around maintenance has been very difficult to obtain. So just to make a long story short, if one engine is repaired by different MRO organizations, there's no digital track of what has been done on that engine. So usually an engine comes with many boxes of paper. And if you don't have that engine in your computer, you need to key in all the components of the engine, and to make sure that it match what you see in front of you to do the configuration control. So it's been an issue for many years in MRO, and now we're thinking maybe because of security linked to blockchain, this could help solve that issue. And the notion of that's the last part of the slide, the issues with ownership of data, because we have jurisprudence in US that says that the data belongs to the operator. So it's a bit it's at the really the beginning of the story here. I would say that blockchain right now in aviation is like the internet when it started. So okay, we know there's possibility. We know it will probably be used a lot, but we're still testing some possibilities. Yeah.
Any further examples there?
Well,
industry related?
Yeah. I know. I've read that Boeing actually is using blockchain in its manufacturing cycle to actually better track the parts coming from the different suppliers. I don't have much detail. I know they link that with IoT, but this is being looked at by Boeing. Actually, it's looked at by many organizations. But this is topic. The way we will approach it in Montreal is we will have a very interesting session on the Thursday, where we will have together Jeremy Clark, who's a professor at Concordia, and he won a gold medal on his PhD research on blockchain. So he explained to me what blockchain was about, and it made sense. I understood what he was talking about. And we'll have André Contant, who is the head of engineering for Airbus aircraft for Air Canada. So this will be a very dynamic session. We will make sure that they work together, they challenge each other, and that the participant can actually ask them questions and possibility of different usage of blockchain in maintenance or any other aspects. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Of course, you can do it in your research project as well.
Yeah, we can display all the things.
Okay, good.
Okay, now let's talk about the integration of aviation, space, and defense in the program. So that's a new thing in the program, initiated by Jacques and George before Jacques. That's a very good idea, because that was missing, I think, in the previous session, that we gonna now better describe how the three domains, space, aviation, and defense, are interconnected. There is a strong nexus between the three, not only on research and technology and development, but also on production, on the sales as well, because the products are also interconnected. There is a lot of synergy on the program, for the different programs. Why it is important for our HSC participant to cover this is because you better understand how works aviation, space, and defense if you know how it is connected. And that it could give to the participants the ability to discuss with managers and leaders in this sector on very accurate points, strategic points, that it's decisive for work, so for working in this sector. So I think that Anders, if I can answer one of the questions, a very good question, how the certificate is valid for undergraduated. I think it's Jane asked a question. Jane, I think this is very valuable for people that have no experience of aerospace before. That's a perfect training if you want to know about this world and to be able to understand this sector. It will not make you an engineer, of course, but with this kind of training, of course, then you are able to work in this sector, definitely.
And I would add, if you allow me, Jean-Philippe, that also your contribution to the other participant is often underestimated, because you come with a new eye. You ask questions that nobody would ask, because they assume everybody knows everything, and then you have people realizing, okay, outside of aviation or defense or aerospace, things are seen differently. And Airbus has had hired a CTO who has left since then. I don't know if it was related with what he said, but he said, oh, an aircraft is just a piece of metal with a lot of cables flying. Okay, yes, it gives also the asset of people coming outside of the industry is important for the group, because it gives a different take to the different issues. Yeah, very important.
So that is the value for this certificate, and I can give you an example of how close our defense and aerospace is. For example, the funding of the industry. Usually, and what is happening in the US most of the time, defense programs are the best way for US government to fund aerospace. Because most of the technologies that are developed for military program, I can name, for example, the F-35, the GSF program. There is a lot of synergies with commercial aviation on all the programs. The C-5, for example, one of the biggest airplane ever built, has for Boeing a lot of synergies with commercial airplanes. We will cover, of course, the export control issues that are very sensitive in this aerospace world, both for commercial actually and military, because this technology are dual, so it can be used for military in the space, not only the space, but the aviation and aerospace as well. So that's mainly an overview of what we're doing. So how are we going to do it in Montreal and Toulouse? We're going to cover, we're going to be very concrete. We're going to cover most of the major aerospace and defense program, not only in Europe, but also in US. We are in Montreal, so we're going to use some expert speakers from US and Canada that we have selected. So very interesting people that are able to explain you what are the strategy and the difficulties as well that we encounter in the development of military programs. A very important angle is the competition, the worldwide competition on this. This industry is very political. That is strategic, considered as strategic for the states, and so they try to protect industry. They try to protect sovereignty through the industry and through the programs. So this is the case, for example, of the future combat aircraft in Europe. And so we're gonna cover that to explore how it works, to let you understand what are the stakes behind this competition. Will be some concrete element also on NATO and European Union that play a role there, especially NATO on standard, because standard are very important key for a major key for this industry, but also in Europe, and of course the behavior of the different member states and countries in this discussion. So, and of course, you are invited. I will propose very concrete and current topics that you can use for a team research project into the certificate. Of course, I'm ready to drive this project with industry and give you contacts and very interesting discussion on this different subjects. So probably 2 or 3 TRP as we discussed, and that could be in the domain of defense if you are interested. Mm-hmm. You are really welcome.
That just reminds me that on the team research project, what we do when you will decide on your team, but what we try to accomplish is that you have a mix of people that have done or are doing the exec MBA, so they come with the baggage of the MBA, so they can help the others that come directly to the executive certificate and might not know so much about business model, marketing, whatever. So we try to create that mix. And then if we have a specific defense or military program, then we might have one TRP that's on defense, or it might be that we have security aspects or defense aspect, or try to think of what you're doing from a different perspective, the only commercial. If we have only, so far we don't have enough military people to create a team, but so that's why.
But this is open to civilian. You don't
Exactly.
have to have any military. This is an opportunity, as Jane asked about this certificate interest. That this is an opportunity for people that are coming from commercial or civilian area to discover the defense and to create links and added value with their own experience.
So that's Jean-Philippe's added value. He will challenge you to say, did you think about the defense and military aspect? Because they're quite important. If you look at the numbers, the military program in aviation and aerospace is quite a big chunk of the investment in the world. So it's something that should be addressed as well. Okay, that's it, Jean-Philippe. Okay, so one topic I wanted to talk about. Of course, we know that you have a lot of questions. We could have discussed a lot of subject, and deciding what we would talk about, because the program is quite dense, was a bit difficult. But I chose that one because I find it quite interesting, because it forces the industry to open up to outside itself, because as you can see, trying to explain what CORSIA is about I have 5 minutes, so that's a bit difficult. Just see that after the Paris Agreement, the aviation decided, and through ICAO, to say, okay, we will measure the CO2 emission in 2020, and that will be the base for. The aim would be that we will remain at that level of emission for at least 2040, as we can see on the slide. But the problem is, and it's a major problem actually, is that this industry is growing a lot. Numbers, as you have passengers, increasing a lot. So what we're saying here is that we want to cap at 2020 the level of CO2, and we have a growth, as you can see on the graph, of emission, because we will have more people traveling. So there's a little part that can be of that reduction that can be produced by more efficient operation and a combination of operation and technology. CESAR, for example, a single sky, and trying to optimize the way we fly. Technology on the aircraft, aircraft being lighter. I think the number is since 1960, the aircraft are consuming 80% less than they were in 1960, and they make like 35% less noise, but that's not enough. It's not enough because it's going to grow. Also, the number of passenger and flight will grow. Yeah.
And Tom Enders was invited yesterday to the Matin de HEC. And he mentioned also electric airplanes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the options. Probably will be hybrid system before.
Yeah.
But this one very interesting topic as well for aviation.
And what you see on that chunk there's a big chunk that is actually CORSIA. Okay, what they actually included in CORSIA is there's also alternative fuels, so biofuels, for example, and any contribution from CORSIA. So what CORSIA is the industry, because of its growth, will be emitting more CO2. Okay, so they will install, and this will be done in a phased approach, and this will be, of course, presented in Montreal by IATA. They will actually do this in a phased approach, but the objective is that at a certain point, if an airline emits more CO2 than it should be in comparison to the 2020 baseline, they will actually purchase carbon offsets, and this means that there's a lot of opportunities for, so this is how it's explained, so it means that there will be a lot of opportunity to work with ONG, and examples of that is to actually contribute to reforestation, replacement of fossil fuel with bio and alternative energy, and many other hybrid aircraft, So it would be possible for airlines. They will need to qualify to offset to specific program, and this I think for the industry is a big game changer, and it's also good for the image of the industry, saying, okay, we travel, people travel more, so there's more flight. We're doing our part in trying to make the airplane more efficient and less polluting. But because there will be more and more, we will pollute. So our contribution will be to actually contribute to solar program and different type of alternative fuels, reforestation. So this is interesting because it gives opportunity, and this could be a very interesting research project on how can the industry facilitate and address that. So okay, we will have somebody from IATA who will explain the program. So what is the timeline, and each participant, and I think HSA is insisting on this, and corporate social responsibility. It would be interesting to have a part of this and say, from a CORSIA perspective, what can I do? So this is on top of being à la mode, as I could say, it's really important that the industry is sensitive to this. Okay. The last part is, okay, when I came to this industry in 2002 as an IT person, the first thing I understood quite rapidly is I could not be a tourist. It's an industry where engineers are very proud of what they've done, and they should be proud. The industry has created tremendous things. But what I found out, and what really impressed me at first, is the number of regulations. As a passenger, okay, I felt great about it because with all the regulations, the organism looking at those, I feel safe flying. Everybody, and this is the purpose of that. But when I came as an IT person trying to innovate in the industry, I said, wow, regulations. I mean, how can you innovate with so much regulations? And actually, it's regulations are there for safety and security of flight, but they're not an impediment to innovation. And we will have somebody from EASA come and talk about this and convince the participant that that's not the case. It's an industry where I came in is that everybody was really good at selling the solution, having the best solution, and this works very well. And I think it's also a European approach of things, saying, okay, we do very good product, but then the question is, to whom can we sell it? So what problems are we solving? So we're trying to, in the program, to say, okay, solutions are fine, but what problems are we solving? So take the paradigm, move the paradigm around, and reduce time to market. Okay, of course, there are regulations that you need to go through to qualify your product, but from the idea to the market, try to reduce that. And also, if you're part, that depends of what you want to do with the program, but if you want to stay within your company and you're part of a large group, how can you, as a manager in that company, how can you develop an entrepreneur mindset? You don't need to be in a startup to work on exciting stuff. How can you do that in a large corporation? So we will talk about the use of agile approach and lean startup, for example. That's one of the agile approach. So you also need to remember that there's not only innovation is not only about product or new technology. Innovation is about new business models. The customer experience. So how does the customer sees your product and goes through his experience? And sometimes you might have a better product, but the experience of the customer is not as good. So this is also innovation. Of course, the product, the technical aspect, the service aspect also. How does the customer sees the total value of your product? Are you only selling product to him, or are you adding value to his business? And also business models. Of course, those doing the executive MBA will see the business modeling from HSA, but we will bring some of that into the program, so at least the participant doing only the executive certificate know how to innovate through new business models. Okay, so basically I said it. So I will give a course on how to put some agile concept and lean startup in developing a new product. And we will have somebody that will be introduced, somebody coming from a general manager of a successful aerospace and aviation startup that has just been bought by a large group, and what they've been doing. What will be really interesting here is how did they go from an idea embed themselves into Aerospace Valley, become an innovative young enterprise, to actually work on research program with large industrial groups. So how do you, if you have an idea and you're a little startup, how do you embed yourself in large European projects? So this will be a very interesting session. And of course, you will need to apply that to your team research project, because we want you to be innovative in the approach you do to your TRP. Okay. That's basically it. Huh?
Okay.
I don't know. Time-wise, we're quite good.
Time-wise, we're quite good. I mean, thank you very much so far, Jacques and Jean-Philippe. So yes, now it's time for Q&A. We have received a number of them during the webinar as well, and we will try to treat a number of the different questions now. So, and also please keep in mind to keep sending in further questions, and we will try to get to as many of them as we can from this point on. So do you see any specific points where you would like to start in the questions that we've received?
There was a question on the EU, ESA, and US. I only partially answered this. Yeah, from Jamila. So this question, yes, it's a good question. How US, EU, ESA, and all the space agencies over the world are interacting on aerospace. We will cover this through concrete examples. For example, the space programs. There is a strong cooperation on space that shows that I think the member states of the different structures, like ESA, for example, and the North America cooperation, are also aware that they don't have the budget. Aerospace needs a lot of investment, large investment, and when you do it together, you do better. So that's a positive thing on aerospace. There is a lot of international cooperation that we will cover in Montreal. But there is also competition. So I would call it co-petition, cooperation and competition together. For example, on military, there is a hard competition on fighter airplanes, on transport airplanes, on satellites, even on launchers. So that's very interesting to see that's how the system works, both with competition and cooperation. But yes, we will cover ESA, EU, and NATO in during the first and the second session.
Yeah, and it's an interesting question, because if you are part of an organization and you don't have a participant in the program, you can certainly reach to me and say, we would like to have some participant take a look at a specific project, and could that be possible? And then they could present the result to you. If some participants are interested in doing this, yes, of course. This is also a possibility. Huh? So yes, for EU, NATO, ESA, but any topic, if you're a company and you like to, I know for a fact that in North America that this happens a lot. Huh? A company goes to university and they say, do you have students that could look into this topic? Yes, reach to me or Anders or Jean-Philippe and say, okay, we would like to have participants, if possible, to look at this. Yeah, of course. This is really an interesting topic. Yeah, there's a question of, can you give us more information on the TRP? It's true that this year we will do a change in the program. What we will do is we'll let the participant choose the topic. So it means that we will do some business school learning in the process, because you will need to sell your idea to the others, which is new. The previous years we were deciding on the mix of composition of the teams. There will be some rules in doing this, and then the best TRP actually is one that has an outcome that is done with a potential outcome after the program, because then it seems to be a lot May to October, but it isn't. So it's a very short period to do. So it's not for those who are familiar with the capstone or the research project, individual project on the exec MBA. Of course, it's not the same level because you don't have as much time and you have the challenge of working in a team, which can be also a benefit in a lot of cases. So you need to organize your work quite well between the sessions. Well, that's a challenge by itself. And Jean-Philippe and I are there to support you, huh? That, like you would have an advisor on your exec MBA capstone. So the subjects are up to you. Huh? I personally don't want to choose the subject or Jean-Philippe for you. Of course, it needs to have the level of an executive certificate, huh? So it needs to be strategic. It's better if one of the members is really involved, at least one of the members. In the past, we've seen people create a startup after their team research project. And I know for a fact that last year, some people are still looking at doing this. So this is the level we're looking for the TRP. Okay.
There is a question on the link between the certificate and the MBA. Do you confirm that this is open to the MBA and the MBA?
Okay, I'm not fully qualified. You would need to reach to I should say. I know that part-time MBA students are to do their field research project is possible. Full-time MBA, I think it will be open next year. This year, we've made it possible for some participants. Huh? The mechanic is you need to reach to HSA. If that's the case, you can you have my email. Send me an email if you want, as a full-time MBA participant, to do the executive certificate. I will put you in link with the right person within HSA because I know it's happened. The mechanic of it, I'm not sure, but it's possible.
There's a good point also is that can you confirm? I think we discussed that a few days ago that the certificate gives credit for the.
The exec MBA, that's for sure. The MBA, I'm not sure. So if the question is around payment, credits, and all that, this I cannot answer myself. So I would need to direct you to someone at HSA. But I know it's feasible. Something's been done for some participants. So if you're really willing, it's worth trying.
It does give credits into the executive MBA, but again,
absolutely,
we would need to check how it works possibly for the MBA.
Yeah, if you do the exec MBA, you have to do the major. If you start with the executive certificate, then you have, I think it's 15 credits that can be input to your executive MBA when you do it after. So yeah, the exec MBA, the mechanic is well oiled. The others, I think it's in making. So yeah, if you have a specific requirement, you're a foreign student and you're in Paris, and this is the occasion to do it. Yes, reach for us. I think I did not mention, it's written on the slide. The session in Montreal for this year is May 6th. I think that's a Sunday, is May 6th. It lasts for a week. I didn't specify it, but it's 2 times 5 days. So 5 days in Montreal plus the Sunday before. And this year's is May 6th. I think next year, because they will redo the program, every major or executive certificate will take place in June. So we will be in Montreal in June, and still I think in October. I think it's still October. And this year it's around the 20th of October in Toulouse.
There is also a question on the MBA, so maybe we can group. There is a question
the
on the size.
Yeah, size of the group. It has, in 10 years, it has rarely been more than 20. It's usually somewhere between 15 and 20 people. Yeah. So you need to understand that other majors have more because they're transversal in the industry sector, like whether energy, lux, or aviation, there's usually less people. 20 is really a good group of people. So we have 4 teams of 5 or 5 teams of 4 working on TRP, and this works quite well. For an example, last year we had 19 people.
We can perhaps provide afterwards also more clarification on profiles and background, because there are other industries, as you mentioned before, as well represented. So it's not hyper-specific to aerospace and aviation and defense.
No.
So
yeah, the objective was to talk more about the trends we had seen and say that we have a program at HEC that addresses those trends and more than what we've shown. Huh? And what we're doing, and what we're doing with Jean-Philippe also is We have not completed the exact frame in detail for October for Toulouse, and this is not for true laziness or we don't know what we want to talk about. Is we just want to be sure. Of course, there is a basic, so I say 90%, 80 to 90% of Montreal is 100% set because it's in just more than a month. But October, we will adjust to the population. That's the one thing, and we will adjust also to the market needs and to what is happening. Things go so fast now, so I think if we would, put in concrete the October program now, this would be an error. Okay, there are things we need to address. Okay, this is fine. How does Airbus sees the market? How do you find if you're an airline, when do you first pay how do you borrow money to buy an aircraft, models like that? Digital transformation in aviation. Okay, things are happening, but we leave ourselves some space to adapt to this. Chances are, when we'll start in May, we'll probably have 3 hours left to adjust the program in October, but we don't want this to be in solid concrete too soon.
Back to the question on the aerospace. I see a question or two questions from Edouard that we can group on innovation. So Edouard, you ask if we see some changes in how the big corporate are facing the innovation challenge to reduce time to market, for example. That's exactly the question that Tom Anders had yesterday during the Le Matin HEC. So he developed that. So he is my boss, so I will not contradict him. I think he said that we are changing processes now. That's a critical point, both for satellites and airplanes. We are too long to build these systems. It's fighter airplane is several decades. It was the case for the F-100M as well, for the military, but this is also a very critical question for the commercial airline, for the A350, A380. It was too long. So now we are really working on to reduce this time to market. But innovation, so of course we will discuss that during the first session, and the second one in Toulouse, maybe even more the second, how we reduce the time to market. So I don't give too much detail today about innovation. How we boost innovation today in most aerospace company. We are taking more risk, and that's very interesting to see how US is leading also this. I take the example of the new space. Probably you know about the Falcon program, SpaceX. They are trying a lot. So they invest a lot, they are trying a lot, they are taking risks, they are ready to fail. That's a new thing for aerospace, as Jacques mentioned. Aerospace is about security as well, so we don't like to take risks. No risk with passenger, no risk with equipment. It's very expensive equipment, systems. But we have to accept to do this in the research and development phase, because this is the key to speed up, to keep innovative. But this is the way we're going to do, and Airbus is following this trend as well. I know that Boeing, Dassault, and we are all playing this game now to be, like you mentioned, to be in a startup mode. We don't buy startup now. We work with startup because we don't want to kill them. We want to keep them very innovative and very proactive. And this is how we address it. So of course, all these topics will be discussing during this certificate. Very interesting.
And what we will do in France, so Paris or Toulouse, we will have a division of a low cost, not to name the company whose logo is orange, his view on innovation, and we have also a big blues view, so our France view, and with the CTO coming and doing a presentation. So yes, I confirm that some airlines are slower than others to innovate. Okay, but some are not, and sometimes it's surprising to see when you think that the Sabre system comes with Amadeus is today, takes its origin in Sabre, and that was invented by American Airlines. So okay, you could always say that the smaller the better for innovation, but that depends on the story and the capacity for organization to do this, and they will address that. There is a bit on that regard. There is a question on someone asking, okay, without going into detail, that person is working on a startup project, and to make the question short, is this a good time for me to take this specific program in my life? I would say this is probably the best time, and I will tell you why, because this relates to my personal experience. When I did my exec MBA and combined it with what was then only a major in aviation and aerospace, so the same type of program, I had just been a co-founder of a company that now has been sold. And we were an IT innovative company working on the link between embarked systems and optimizing the maintenance operations, facilitating maintenance. And we created that company in 2004. I did my exec MBA in 2008. So we went from pure consulting to doing this, and I was named the head of that. And that was the best choice I've ever done, because it accelerated, it gave me and my company a business view of what innovation is. It's not only the product itself, it's how do I market that product, how do I define my strategy, how do I target the right customer. Yes, this is definitely, I would say it's not the right time, it's the best time to do it. If you're working, if you have an idea and you want to make this reality, it's the best time to do this program, and I would strongly recommend that you combine it with the exec certificate. What was not clear maybe to you is you can start by the executive certificate in aviation and aerospace and then do the exec MBA, or you can do the exec MBA and do the exec certificate at the same time. So there's no, I would strongly suggest that you do both. But if you want to accelerate your innovation in aviation and aerospace, do the executive certificate. It's a very good investment. Believe me, this is why I'm still doing this. This is why I decided to take the relay from Georges, who went to retirement, because I truly believe that a lot of people out there have great ideas they need to bring to this industry, and this is the right time to do it for sure. And the program is good for that. It's also related to another question. Do we have an incubator? I saw, do we have an incubator? HEC last year signed an agreement with ISA. They will have an ISA lab within HEC. I'm working on visiting with these people, trying to understand what they want to do exactly. So there is an HEC incubator in general, because there is also innovation.
That is very successful.
Very successful by itself. They don't specifically understand what you're talking about when you're talking about aerospace and innovation, but there is an incubator, pure incubator. But just know that HEC also has signed an agreement last year with ISA to create a lab to do specific research in space. Okay? And when we see the competition coming from SpaceX and Elon Musk, okay, this is more than needed. Okay.
Did we see any very last point that we can squeeze in today? It's a question. So anything we have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
There is many questions that are very interesting that we. Yeah, about the prime of the aerospace sector. Of course, we're going to cover prime, but we cannot. The aerospace environment is too big to cover this. So what we're going to do is we're going to, of course, cover the big players, big actors of the sector, but with specific projects that we believe are the future. So future combat aircraft system for military, for example. I didn't mention about the Zephyr and the high altitude platform, because now the aerospace industry try to explore the stratospheric area levels that are today very low employed. So stratospheric airplanes and UAVs as well are one of the topic. So we're gonna screen the big actors, but through specific programs because it's too large. So not all the business systems, but some specific and what strategic issues. That would be the most useful for candidates, for the participant of the certificates in their future business if they want to work in the aerospace or close to the aerospace sector.
Yeah, when we're in Toulouse, of course, we're with Airbus, and we this year we'll do it again. I don't know how long we'll do this, but we'll go visit the A350 assembly line, and we talk with the program manager of the A350. So it's quite useful. In North America, we don't. So this year we don't have access directly to Boeing, but we have access to people who have done a lot of work with Boeing and major North American airlines from a fleet and a route planning perspective as well. So yes, and we will grow, as we say, we will grow, and the program is to adapt also to the participant. We believe in, that's why Jean-Philippe is in the program now. This integration for me is really important because it's not only about aviation anymore, and aviation will be spaciation soon. Huh? So will airport exist the way they exist in 20 years from now? No, okay. So we need to look into this. So there's a convergence between that because of security issues. The military aspect or defense aspects are more present as well beyond the programs themselves in the aviation itself. Right? So security is an issue as well. We're talking about having big data playing a big role and aircraft being connected. Okay, yes, that's great. But what about the security and related to that? And we'll visit in Montreal CITA, which is quite interesting. I don't want to give all details, but it's quite interesting the visit we do there because they do some activities on safeguarding security of airports and aircrafts around the world. So yes, the program is evolving. The industry is evolving, so we're evolving with that program. And what we want to do is we want to venture also in areas where we think things might happen a certain way and ask the right questions and be prospective as much as we can be.
Absolutely.
There is two questions from Alexandre. One of the new entrants. That's a good question. New entrants, of course, is a very strategic question for all the actors of the aerospace industry. So we not only cover US and Europe. Of course, we are closely looking to Russia and China about aerospace. China is definitely the new player and could be the new leader tomorrow, both in commercial and in defense aerospace. So yes, of course, it will be present in different course lessons. And you ask about the preparation of the modules. Yes, for each module there is lectures before that we so there is recommended lectures and that mandatory lectures that you need to prepare the module before, but it's quite easy. Yeah? It's just reading just before to go to bed. So 30 minutes, a few days, and you will cover the main articles. It's mainly articles. We don't give too big lectures like books. We can recommend books, but you can read it very fastly. Only the main the things you want to read in the book. So that's of course part of the program, the lectures.
Yes, there is a question I'd like because it was asked, and it's true that I went really fast on VR and AR. And yes, there is some potential in flight entertainment for virtual reality. That's for sure. And this is something we're looking at addressing for sure. 2 times 5 days is a lot. What we want to avoid is just touching the subject on the tip of the iceberg. So we will adjust as the topic evolve in the industry. So we want to spend some time. So the minimum time we spend on a topic is 2 hours. So in class. So that's the minimum we have with an expert on the subject. So 2 hours is not so long. So we can't address everything, of course, but and if a topic is not addressed in class, it can certainly be part of a team research project. And we have access to a lot of experts and can help you gain access to these experts without a problem. But we leave ourselves the possibility to adjust the program on the edges to make sure that it fits most of the desire of the participants. But it's, you know, there's a maximum of things we can do in 2 times 5 days. Huh?
Also, what we can try to do, there are still a number of very interesting and important questions that we could continue to answer. We are sadly low on time, so what we can see if we can come back to you as a follow-up with the questions that you have posed that we have been unable to answer at this point. So we'll see about solving that technically, and then come back to you. And I want to thank all of you, the participants, for taking part in this session, this webinar. We're available going forward for further questions. You will have, and you have, our contact details right there on the screen. And naturally, we will send them to you again with the follow-up link as well, with information, with the recording of this webinar also. And we look forward to seeing a number of you in the certificate program for Aerospace and Aviation. And we look forward to keep answering your questions and have a number of discussions individually with you as well. So thank you very much for your participation, and thank you again, Jacques and Jean-Philippe, for your very nice contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Bye.